I'm Shannon, 32, and literally last weekend, my rep as the family's quiet supporter? Yeah, it totally backfired. The $20 million business I'd worked my butt off to build from nothing? It blew up into a full-on family meltdown at my father's birthday dinner. My dad, the man who's always held the reins, straight up demanded I admit my life was a failure, and when I clapped back, the room went dead silent. "You're just uneducated trash," he yelled, with my siblings and cousins staring like deer in headlights. But here's the tea. His shade didn't break me, it lit a spark. I'm not just pushing back, I'm about to flip the script and change everything. A quick note, this story is copyrighted by the YouTube channel Guest Stories. Reposting, revoicing, or editing this content without permission constitutes copyright infringement. Thank you for respecting original creative work. Now back to the story. I've always been the odd one out in my family, the one who didn't fit the mold they carved out before I was even born. Growing up in a small, judgmental town, my parents, especially my dad, had this rigid blueprint for success. College degree, steady job, marriage, kids, repeat. My older sister Emily and younger brother Mark followed it like gospel. Emily's a lawyer with a corner office, and Mark's a doctor with a framed diploma that Dad practically worships. Me? I dropped out of community college after one semester. Not because I couldn't hack it, but because I was restless, itching to create something of my own. I saw the world moving fast, apps, startups, people building empires from their laptops, and I wanted in. That choice, though, it made me invisible to them. Last weekend was Dad's 60th birthday, a big deal in our family. I drove 3 hours to our old family home, a brick house with creaky floors and too many framed photos of Emily and Mark's graduations. I'd been dreading it for weeks, knowing the usual script. Dad's pointed questions about my little hobby business, Mom's tight-lipped smiles, and my siblings' polite but smug nods. I've been running my company for 8 years, but to them it's still not real because I don't have a degree to hang on the wall. What they didn't know, what I've kept quiet, was how big it had gotten. But that I've been paying their bills for years. I pulled into the driveway, my stomach twisting as I gripped the steering wheel. The house looked the same, neat lawn, faded shutters, Dad's old pickup parked out front. I grabbed the gift I'd brought, a custom leather-bound journal, because Dad loves writing his memoirs. Stepping out of my car, I smoothed my dress, a simple navy thing I'd picked to avoid comments about trying too hard. The air smelled like grilled meat and honeysuckle, and I could hear laughter spilling from the backyard. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and walked toward the noise, already bracing for the judgment. Inside, the dining room was packed. Aunts, uncles, cousins, and neighbors crowded around a long table covered with a checkered cloth. Mom was fussing over a tray of deviled eggs, her hands fluttering like they always do when she's nervous. Emily, in her crisp blazer, was holding court, telling some story about a case she'd won. Mark, still in his hospital scrubs, was nodding along, his arm around his fiancée. Dad sat at the head of the table, his broad shoulders filling the chair, his eyes scanning the room like a king surveying his court. When he saw me, his smile faltered, just for a second. "Shannon," he said, voice flat, "you made it." I forced a smile, clutching the gift bag. "Happy birthday, Dad." I set the journal in front of him and he barely glanced at it, just pushed it aside to make room for his plate. My chest tightened, but I swallowed it down and took a seat next to Cousin Lisa, who at least gave me a warm hug. The chatter resumed, but I felt it. The weight of their eyes, the unspoken question. What's Shannon doing with her life? I sipped my water, the glass cooled against my palm, and tried to focus on Lisa's small talk about her new job. But Dad's voice cut through, loud and deliberate. "So, Shannon," he said, leaning forward, "still playing with that little side hustle of yours?" The table went quiet. Emily's fork paused midair. Mark cleared his throat, avoiding my gaze. I felt my face heat up, but I kept my voice steady. "It's not a side hustle, Dad, it's my company." He snorted, a sound that hit like a slap. "Company," he repeated, like it was a joke. "You mean that thing you do instead of getting a real education?" The words stung, sharp and familiar, but I wasn't ready for what came next. I opened my mouth to respond, my fingers tightening around my napkin, but he waved me off. "Let's not ruin dinner," he said, turning to Emily. "Tell us more about that promotion, sweetheart." I sat there, pulse pounding in my ears as the conversation moved on without me. I wanted to scream, to tell them about the late nights, the deals, the millions I'd earned while they dismissed me. But I didn't. Not yet. I glanced at Dad, his jaw set, his eyes already on someone else. That spark I mentioned? It was starting to burn. As the laughter picked up again around the table, with Emily diving back into her story about some high-profile client, I stared at my plate, pushing a fork through the mashed potatoes. The steam rose in lazy curls, but I couldn't taste a thing. My mind wandered back, pulling up memories I'd buried deep, the ones that explained why Dad's words cut so sharp tonight. It wasn't just this dinner, it was a lifetime of being sidelined. Of my wins getting glossed over while Emily and Mark got parades for following the rules. Sitting there, feeling the chair's wooden edge dig into my thighs, I let the flashbacks roll in, each one like a punch I couldn't dodge. The first one hit me hard, from when I was 16. I'd just won a local entrepreneurship contest at school. Nothing huge, but I'd pitched a simple app idea for organizing community events, and the judges loved it. I came home buzzing, certificate in hand, ready to show off. Mom was in the kitchen, stirring spaghetti sauce, the smell of garlic filling the air. I slapped the paper on the counter, grinning. "Look, Mom, I won!" She glanced at it, her spoon pausing mid-stir, then nodded. "That's nice, honey. But have you thought about your college applications?" Dad walked in then, loosening his tie after work, and I thrust it toward him. He scanned it, eyebrows furrowing. "An app? What's that got to do with real life?" He set it down, turning to Mark, who was 14 and had just aced a science test. "Now that's something to celebrate," Dad said, ruffling Mark's hair. "We ended up going out for ice cream, for Mark's A." "My certificate?" It sat on the counter until it got sauce splattered on it and Mom threw it away. I remember clenching my fists under the table at the diner, forcing a smile while they toasted Mark, my chest aching like I'd swallowed glass. That set the pattern. Fast forward to my early 20s, right after I dropped out of college. I'd been tinkering with online sales, flipping vintage clothes on eBay, and I hit my first big milestone. $10,000 in a month. It felt massive, like proof I was onto something. I told the family over Sunday brunch at home, my hands shaking a little as I passed around my phone with the sales dashboard. Emily, fresh out of law school, sipped her coffee and said, "That's cute, Shannon, but you know, without a degree it's just a hobby." Mark, in med school, chuckled. "Yes, sis, don't quit your day job. Oh wait, you don't have one." Dad leaned back, crossing his arms, his watch glinting under the light. "Money comes and goes. Education sticks." Then Mom changed the subject to Emily's new internship at a firm. I sat there, my phone warm in my lap, scrolling through the numbers again to remind myself it was real. No one asked for details, no high fives, just that pitying look, like I was a kid playing pretend. Another flash, Christmas 4 years ago. I'd quietly started my business proper by then, an e-commerce site for eco-friendly home goods, and it was gaining traction. I'd made enough to cover Mom's car repair when her old sedan broke down, $2,500 wired anonymously through a family fund I set up. But at the holiday dinner, the spotlight was on Mark's residency acceptance. Dad stood up, glass raised, his voice booming. To Mark, the future Dr. Thompson. Cheers erupted, claps on the back. I joined in, my palms stinging from the force, but when it was my turn to share, I'd just landed my first wholesale deal with a chain store. Dad waved it off. "Let's keep the toasts meaningful," he said, sitting down. Emily whispered to me later, her breath minty from gum. "You should think about going back to school. It's never too late." I nodded, biting my lip until I tasted blood, excusing myself to the bathroom where I gripped the sink, staring at my reflection, whispering, "You're not nothing." These moments piled up, each one chipping away at me. Like the time 2 years back at Emily's wedding. She'd married a fellow lawyer, big fancy affair. During the reception, Dad pulled me aside on the dance floor, his hand heavy on my shoulder. "See what a degree gets you," he said, nodding at Emily twirling in her gown. I'd just crossed $1 million in revenue that quarter, but I didn't mention it. Instead I smiled, my heels pinching my feet, and said, "Yeah, Dad." He patted my back like I was a lost cause and walked away. Mark caught my eye later, shrugging as if to say, "That's just how it is." I spent the rest of the night nursing a drink in the corner, watching them laugh, feeling like a ghost at my own sister's party. Back at the birthday dinner, the clink of forks snapped me out of it. Dad was laughing at something Mark said, his head thrown back. I realized my hands were trembling, the napkin twisted in my fists. These weren't just old hurts, they were the foundation of why I kept my success hidden. I'd been sending money for years, covering Dad's medical bills after his knee surgery, helping Emily with her student loans, even paying for Mark's wedding last year, all without a word. I told myself it was love, but sitting here, it felt like desperation, like buying approval that never came. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from my assistant about the big deal closing soon, but I ignored it. My eyes locked on Dad. The spark was flickering brighter, fed by all these ignored victories. How much longer could I take this? The buzz from my phone jolted me back to the table where Dad was still chuckling over Mark's joke, his fork scraping against his plate as he speared another bite of steak. I slipped my hand into my pocket, silencing it without looking, probably my assistant again, chasing updates on the deal. But that vibration lingered, a reminder of the world I'd built outside this room, the one they knew nothing about. As the conversation droned on, my thoughts drifted to how it all started, that single aha moment that changed everything. It wasn't some grand epiphany under a spotlight. It was quiet, desperate, born from the invisibility I'd just been reliving. Sitting there, feeling the cool metal of my phone against my thigh, I let the memory pull me in, every detail sharp as the day it happened. It was 9 years ago, right after that Christmas where Dad dismissed my first big sales milestone. I was 23, crashing on a friend's couch because I couldn't afford rent after dropping out. My days blurred into job hunts, waitressing gigs that paid peanuts, and nights scrolling job sites, my laptop screen glowing in the dark living room. One evening after a shift where I'd spilled coffee on a customer and gotten yelled at, I slumped on the couch, wiping sticky hands on my jeans. My feet ached from standing, blisters throbbing in my sneakers. I grabbed a soda from the fridge, the can hissing as I cracked it open, and flopped down, mind numb. That's when I stumbled on a video. A TED Talk about sustainable living. Some woman talking about eco-friendly products exploding in demand. It hit me like a slap. I'd always loved thrifting, repurposing old stuff. But what if I turned that into something bigger? An online store for affordable green home essentials, things like bamboo toothbrushes, reusable bags, but branded sleek, not hippie. My heart raced. I set the soda down, the condensation pooling on the coffee table, and grabbed a notebook. Scribbling ideas, my pen flying across the page, I felt alive for the first time in months. No degree needed, just hustle. That was the spark. But the struggle? God, it was brutal, a grind that tested every ounce of me. The next morning, I woke with a headache from staying up till 3 a.m. researching suppliers. I dragged myself to the library, free Wi-Fi, quiet desks, and spent hours emailing Chinese manufacturers, my fingers cramping on the keyboard. Rejections piled up. One supplier ghosted me after I asked for samples, another quoted prices way over budget. I had $500 saved from tips, so I maxed out a credit card for inventory, 100 units of bamboo cutlery sets. When the boxes arrived at my friend's apartment, I tore them open with shaking hands, the cardboard ripping under my nails. They looked good, but selling? I set up a basic website on a free platform, my eyes burning from staring at tutorials. First sale came after 2 weeks, a single set for $15. I whooped, fist pumping alone in the room, but then reality hit. Shipping costs ate half the profit. I packed it myself, taping the box with trembling fingers, walking to the post office in the rain, umbrella forgotten. Months blurred into a haze of failures. I moved into a tiny studio, walls thin enough to hear neighbors arguing, bed a mattress on the floor. I'd work my day job, then come home to fulfill orders, my back aching from hunching over the table. One night, inventory low. A big order came in. 50 units, but my supplier delayed shipment. I paced the room, phone clutched tight, yelling into voicemail when they didn't pick up. Tears stung my eyes. I sank to the floor, knees pulled up, rocking slightly. "You can't do this," I whispered to myself, echoing Dad's doubts. But I pushed through, finding a new supplier overnight, refreshing my email every minute till dawn. Credit card debt climbed to $10,000. Bill collectors called, their voices sharp through the speaker. I skipped meals, surviving on ramen, the salty broth burning my throat. Friends drifted away. "You're always working," they'd say. Isolation hit hard. I'd stare at my phone, thumb hovering over mom's number, but never dial. What would I say? "Help me, even though you think I'm wasting my life." The turning point came after a year when I hit rock bottom. Sales flatlined at $2,000 a month. I was behind on rent, eviction notice taped to my door, the paper crinkling as I peeled it off. I sat on the floor amid unpacked boxes, head in hands, nails digging into my scalp. Then an idea. Social media marketing. I filmed my first video. Shaky handheld, me unboxing products in bad lighting. Posted it on Instagram, heart pounding as I hit upload. Views trickled in, then exploded after a micro-influencer shared it. Orders surged, I scrambled, packing till my fingers blistered, tape gun clicking non-stop. Revenue doubled, then tripled. I hired my first freelancer, a virtual assistant, to handle emails, her responses pinging in while I focused on growth. We pivoted to subscription boxes, my idea scribbled on a napkin during a rare coffee break. By year 3 we'd crossed $1 million annually. I moved to a real office, a small space with buzzing fluorescents, hiring a team of 5. Deals with retailers followed. I'd negotiate over calls, voice steady despite sweaty palms, closing a partnership with a national chain. The massive success stayed hidden because I chose it that way. By year 5, $5 million in revenue. Year 8, $20 million. I funneled profits back, but also quietly supported my family, $50,000 to dad's surgery fund, wired anonymously. Monthly deposits to mom's account labeled inheritance advance. They thought it was from some old relative. Why hide? Part of me hoped they'd see my worth without proof, but mostly, it was armor. Revealing it meant admitting I'd been chasing their approval all along. Now, at the dinner table, as Emily passed the salad bowl, her bracelet jangling, I felt the weight of that secret. My company was on the cusp of a $50 million acquisition. The call earlier was confirmation brewing. But here, I was still the failure. My fork clattered against the plate as I set it down, drawing a glance from Mom. She frowned, her eyes searching mine, but I looked away, clenching my jaw. The struggle had forged me, but the hiding? It was cracking. As I clenched my jaw, avoiding Mom's searching eyes across the table, the clatter of silverware fading into background noise, my mind slipped away from the present tension to earlier that day, the hours before I hit the road for this inevitable gathering. It was Saturday morning, the day of Dad's birthday, and my apartment buzzed with the kind of energy that comes from big things brewing. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, casting stripes on my kitchen counter, where my coffee mug sat steaming untouched. I'd woken up at 6 a.m., not from an alarm but from the knot in my stomach, the same one that twisted tighter every time a family event loomed. Today, though, it warred with excitement. My company was teetering on the edge of a game-changing acquisition, a $50 million deal with a major retailer that would catapult us into the mainstream. But instead of celebrating, I was steeling myself for the drive to that house, the one place where my achievements meant nothing. I padded to my home office in bare feet, the hardwood cool under my toes, and flipped open my laptop. The screen lit up with emails, dozens from my team, the subject line screaming urgency, final terms review, investor call at noon, press release draft. I rubbed my eyes, still gritty from a late night tweaking the pitch deck, and clicked on the top one from my COO, Sarah. "Shannon, the buyers are pushing for a close by Monday. Your signature needed on the NDA addendum." My heart thumped as I scanned the attachment, fingers hovering over the trackpad. This deal wasn't just money. It was validation, proof that betting on myself had paid off. I'd built this from that couch-surfing desperation, and now it was real. Warehouses, employees, global suppliers. But signing felt heavy, like committing to a future where I couldn't hide anymore. I typed a quick reply, "Approved, let's lock it in," and hit send, my nail tapping the key a second too long. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, reminding me of the other obligation. I pushed back from the desk, chair wheels scraping the floor, and headed to the bedroom. My closet door creaked as I opened it, staring at the rows of clothes, power suits for meetings, casual tees for warehouse days. For family, something neutral, unassuming. I pulled out the navy dress, holding it up to the mirror, the fabric soft against my skin. "Don't give them ammo," I muttered, slipping it on. The zipper stuck halfway up my back. I twisted, reaching awkwardly, grunting until it gave. Smoothing the hem, I caught my reflection. Hair messy, eyes shadowed from lack of sleep. I grabbed a brush from the dresser, yanking through tangles, each pull a small vent for the frustration building. Why go at all? The question looped in my head as I applied mascara, wand steady despite my shaking hand. They'd never asked about my life, not really. But I went because of habit, because part of me still craved that nod from Dad, the one Emily and Mark got, effortless. My phone rang, vibrating on the nightstand, and I snatched it up, seeing Sarah's name. "Hey," I answered, putting it on speaker as I hunted for shoes. "Deal update." Her voice crackled through, excited. "They countered with better terms, higher upfront payment. We could sign today if you're ready." I froze, one heel half on, balancing against the bed. Today? While I was about to sit through hours of subtle digs? "Give me an hour," I said, voice tighter than I meant. "I'm heading to family stuff, but I'll review in the car." She paused. "You sure? This is huge." I forced a laugh, bitter in my throat. "Yeah, family first, right?" Hanging up, I slid on the other shoe, the leather pinching my toe. I glanced at the gift on my bed, the leather journal, wrapped in simple paper. I'd ordered it custom, embossed with Dad's initials, thinking maybe it'd spark something. Now it felt pathetic. I tucked it into a bag, the crinkle of paper echoing my doubt. Breakfast was a non-starter. My stomach churned at the thought. I poured the coffee down the sink, watching it swirl away, then grabbed my keys from the hook by the door. They jingled in my hand as I locked up, the deadbolt clicking with finality. Outside, the air was crisp, birds chirping in the trees lining my street. I climbed into my car, a sensible SUV I'd bought last year, nothing flashy, and adjusted the rearview mirror, catching my own eyes staring back. Resolute but weary. Starting the engine, the hum filled the silence, and I pulled out, merging onto the highway. Traffic was light, but my mind raced. What if I turned around? Called with an excuse, work emergency, which wasn't even a lie. But no, I'd go, endure, like always. My phone buzzed again, a text from Mom. "See you soon, drive safe." I gripped the wheel tighter, knuckles whitening, and accelerated. Halfway there, I stopped at a gas station, the pump clicking as it filled the tank. Inside, I bought a water, twisting the cap off with a crack, gulping it down while leaning against the car. The deal email sat open on my phone, terms glowing. $50 million. Enough to retire, but I wouldn't. It was for growth, for proving I didn't need their mold. Yet, as I got back on the road, doubt crept in. Would revealing it change anything? Or would Dad just scoff, say it was luck? I turned up the radio, some pop song blaring, but switched it off after a minute, preferring the quiet to sort my thoughts. The landscape blurred. Fields, billboards, exit signs counting down to home. By the time I neared the town, the knot had loosened a fraction. Maybe tonight would be different. Maybe the deal closing would give me the courage to speak up. I turned onto the familiar street, houses whizzing by, and pulled into the driveway, just as I'd done 100 times. But this morning's preparations lingered in my mind, a mix of triumph and trepidation. The deal was closing in, the family was waiting. I cut the engine, keys dangling, and took a deep breath, hand on the door handle. Back at the table now, as Mom's frown softened and she passed the bread basket my way, I felt that morning's resolve stirring again. The phone in my pocket felt heavier, the pending notification a secret weapon. But the barrage was just beginning. Dad's eyes flicked my way, promising more. As Mom passed the bread basket my way, her fingers brushing mine briefly, warm but hesitant, I took a roll, tearing it apart slowly, crumbs scattering on my plate like tiny accusations. The table's chatter had picked up again, a low hum of small talk about weather and work, but Dad's flicking eyes landed on me, holding steady now, like a predator sizing up prey. I felt the shift in the air, the way conversations dipped just enough to make room for what was coming. My resolve from the morning stirred, but it mixed with a familiar dread, tightening my throat as I chewed the dry bread. This wasn't new. Every family gathering had its gauntlet, a series of jabs dressed as concern, and tonight, with the deal humming in my pocket, it felt sharper, more absurd. I set the roll down, wiping my hands on my napkin under the table, fabric bunching in my fists. It started subtle, like always. Aunt Karen, seated across from me with her floral blouse buttoned tight, leaned in, her fork poised over her salad. Shannon dear, she said, voice syrupy sweet. How's that little online shop of yours going? Still selling those, what was it, recycled bottles or something? She smiled, but her eyes crinkled with pity, the kind that made my skin crawl. I forced a nod, my foot tapping lightly against the chair leg. It's eco-friendly home goods, Aunt Karen. Doing well, actually. She tilted her head, patting her napkin to her lips. Oh, that's nice. But have you thought about getting a real certification? You know, something official? The word real hung there, echoing Dad's earlier dismissal. I glanced at Emily, who was sipping her wine, her glass stem twisting in her fingers. She didn't jump in, just watched with that neutral lawyer face. Before I could respond, Uncle Bob chimed in from the end of the table, his mustache twitching as he cut into his steak, knife scraping the plate. Certification? Heck, Shannon, you should have stuck with school like your siblings. Look at Mark here, saving lives every day. He gestured with his fork, a bit of meat dangling, and Mark shifted in his seat, clearing his throat but saying nothing. My cheeks burned, I pressed my palms flat on my thighs, nails digging into the fabric of my dress. I am building something, Uncle Bob. It's not nothing. He chuckled, a deep rumble that drew nods from a couple cousins. Sure, kid, but without that piece of paper it's like building on sand. One wave, and poof. He waved his hand, mimicking erasure, and laughter rippled lightly. Mom reached for the butter, her knife clinking loudly as if to drown it out, but she avoided my eyes. The questions kept coming, each one a little barb wrapped in velvet. Cousin Lisa, who I'd hugged earlier, turned to me with wide eyes, her earrings swaying. Shannon, you're so brave doing it all on your own. I mean, no backup plan? That's adventurous. She said adventurous like it was code for reckless, her hand fluttering to her necklace. I swallowed, my water glass sweating in my grip as I took a sip, the cool liquid doing nothing for the heat rising in my chest. It's calculated, Lisa. I've got a team now, projections. But Dad cut me off, his voice booming over the table like thunder. Projections? Listen to her, folks. Sounds like one of those TV sharks. He leaned back, crossing his arms, his chair creaking under his weight. The room quieted again, forks pausing midair. Tell me, Shannon, how many projections have fallen through already? You dropped out, remember? That's not brave, that's quitting. My breath caught, a sharp inhale that made my nostrils flare. I set the glass down too hard, a thud that drew glances. Quitting, he'd thrown that word at me before, but tonight it landed like a fist. I thought of the mornings I'd woken at 4 a.m., laptop balanced on my knees, debugging website crashes while tears blurred the screen. The nights I'd paced my apartment, phone pressed to my ear, begging suppliers for extensions on payments. But here, it was reduced to quitting. Emily finally spoke, her tone measured, like she was cross-examining a witness. Dad, ease up. Shannon's trying. Trying, the backhanded compliment stung worse than outright criticism. Mark nodded, mumbling, Yeah, it's tough out there without credentials. Their support felt like salt in the wound. I clenched my toes in my shoes, the leather creasing. Aunt Karen jumped back in, as if sensing blood. Well, if it's going so well, why not share some numbers? Inspire us uneducated folks. She air-quoted uneducated, giggling, but her eyes were sharp. I hesitated, my thumb rubbing the edge of my plate, feeling the smooth china. Numbers? I could bury them in figures. $20 million revenue, 50 employees, international shipping. But revealing it now felt like begging, like proving myself to a jury that had already decided. It's steady, I said vaguely, my voice smaller than I wanted. Uncle Bob snorted. Steady like a hobby. Emily here closed $1 million case last month. That's steady. Cheers went up for Emily, glasses clinking, and she blushed modestly, her hand waving it off. I sat there, invisible again, my fork idle, appetite gone. The barrage peaked when Dad fixed me with that stare, his bushy eyebrows knitting. You know, Shannon, we're proud of Emily and Mark because they earned it the right way, no shortcuts. Shortcuts. My years of sacrifice. The anonymous wires to his bank account reduced to that. My hands trembled under the table, I laced my fingers tight, knuckles whitening. Mom finally interjected, her voice soft. Let's talk about something else. The cake's almost ready. But the damage was done. Whispers started. Cousin Lisa to her husband, Aunt Karen murmuring to Uncle Bob. I felt their eyes, pity mixed with judgment, like I was a cautionary tale. My phone vibrated again, insistent, but I ignored it, focusing on breathing in and out, chest rising slow. As the main course wrapped up, plates being cleared with scrapes and stacks. The condescension lingered in the air, thick as the gravy congealing on my untouched steak. I'd endured this before, but tonight, with the deal so close, it fueled something fiercer, a quiet rage building in my core. Dad pushed his chair back slightly, signaling the next phase, his eyes still on me, promising the real storm. Dad's eyes locked on mine, challenging, as if daring me to push back, and in that moment, the room seemed to shrink around us, the candle flames flickering on the table like wary spectators. My breath came shallow, chest rising and falling in quick, uneven rhythms, while my fingers stayed laced under the table, nails pressing crescents into my palms. The chatter had died down completely now, plates half cleared, the scent of cooling gravy hanging heavy in the air. Mom shifted in her seat, her chair scraping faintly against the floor, but she didn't intervene, just twisted her napkin in her lap, threads pulling under her grip. Emily and Mark exchanged glances, Emily's wineglass hovering near her lips, the red liquid sloshing slightly as her hand trembled. I could feel the collective hold of breath, the way Uncle Bob set his fork down with a deliberate clink, leaning back as if settling in for a show. Dad cleared his throat, a deep rumble that cut through the silence, and leaned forward, elbows planting on the table with a thud that made the salt shaker wobble. "Shannon," he started, his voice low at first, building like a storm, "I've been thinking about this for a long time. We've all been thinking about it." He gestured vaguely around the table, his thick finger sweeping the air, drawing nods from Aunt Karen and Uncle Bob. My heart hammered, a dull thud in my ears, drowning out the distant tick of the wall clock. What was this? The jabs were one thing, but this felt different, calculated, final. I straightened my spine, the chair back digging into my shoulders, and met his gaze, refusing to blink first. "Thinking about what, Dad?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt, though it came out edged, sharp enough to make Mom flinch. He sighed, a heavy exhale that puffed his cheeks and rubbed his jaw, stubble rasping under his palm. "About you, about how you've chosen to live. No education, no real path, just drifting." The word drifting landed like a weight, and I felt my stomach drop, a cold churn that made me press my feet flat against the floor for stability. Emily set her glass down carefully, the base clicking against the wood, and Mark crossed his arms, his hospital bracelet peeking from his sleeve. Dad continued, his eyes narrowing, brows knitting into a deep furrow. "We've supported you, given you chances, advice, but you ignore it all. And now, at my birthday, of all days, you sit here acting like your choices don't affect us." Affect them? The irony burned. I'd been the one wiring money for his knee replacement, covering Emily's down payment on her house last year, all without a whisper. My lips parted to say something, but he held up a hand, palm out, silencing me like I was a child. The escalation built slowly, each word stacking like bricks in a wall. "I'm done," he said, voice rising, echoing off the dining room walls. "We're all done pretending this is okay. You're not like us, Shannon. Emily and Mark, they make us proud. They contribute." Contribute, the hypocrisy twisted in my gut, but I stayed silent, my tongue pressed to the roof of my mouth, tasting salt from biting back words. Aunt Karen murmured agreement, her head nodding slowly, earrings swaying like pendulums. Uncle Bob grunted. "About time," his fist lightly tapping the table. Mom's eyes welled up, a tear catching on her lash before she blinked it away, her hand reaching toward Dad's arm but pulling back at the last second. "Tom," she whispered, but he shook his head, jaw set firm. I felt the room tilt, my vision narrowing to Dad's face, the lines etched deep around his mouth, the vein pulsing in his forehead. My hands unclenched under the table, fingers flexing stiffly, as if preparing for a fight. "What are you saying?" I managed, my voice cracking now, betraying the crack in my armor. He leaned in closer, his breath carrying the scent of whiskey from his pre-dinner drink. "I'm saying you're cut off. No more family support, no more holidays like this, no inheritance. You're on your own, truly on your own, like you've pretended to be." The words slammed into me, each one a blow. Cut off, no more, on your own. My breath hitched, a gasp I couldn't suppress, and I felt heat flood my face, tears pricking my eyes but not falling. Not yet. Emily gasped softly, her hand covering her mouth, fingers splaying wide, while Mark's eyes widened, his chair creaking as he shifted uncomfortably. The formal announcement hung there, thick and irreversible. Dad pushed back from the table, his chair legs screeching against the tile, standing tall as if delivering a verdict in court. "You're uneducated trash, Shannon. You've embarrassed this family long enough. Get out." The insult, uneducated trash, echoed, raw and vicious, making Cousin Lisa wince, her hand finally withdrawing from mine. The room erupted in murmurs, Aunt Karen whispering to Uncle Bob, "He didn't mean it that harshly." But her tone lacked conviction. Mom stood halfway, her hands fluttering uselessly. "Tom, please," but he ignored her, pointing toward the door, his finger trembling slightly with rage. I rose slowly, legs shaky, the napkin falling from my lap to the floor in a soft heap. My vision blurred at the edges, but I focused on small things, the way the candle wax dripped slowly down the holder, the faint pattern on the tablecloth under my fingertips as I braced myself. Pushing my chair back, the wood groaning in protest, I grabbed my purse from the backrest, strap slipping over my shoulder with a whisper of leather. Whispers followed me. Emily's hushed, "Shannon, wait," but I didn't turn. Dad's face was red, his fists clenched at his sides, knuckles white. "Go on, leave, and don't come back until you've fixed your life." The finality hit like a door slamming. This wasn't just anger. It was disownment, official in public. My steps toward the door were measured, heels clicking on the floor, each one echoing my pounding heart. I paused at the threshold, hand on the knob, cool brass under my palm, and looked back once. Mom's tear-streaked face, siblings frozen in shock, relatives averting eyes. Then I twisted the knob, the click sharp, and stepped out into the night air, the door shutting behind me with a thud that sealed it all. Outside, the porch light buzzed overhead, moths fluttering against the bulb. I leaned against the railing, wood splintering slightly under my grip, and let out a shuddering breath, the tears finally spilling hot down my cheeks. My phone buzzed insistently in my purse, vibrating against my hip, but I ignored it, wiping my face with the back of my hand, smearing mascara. Disowned. The word looped in my mind. A verdict I hadn't seen coming, yet somehow always expected. The humiliation burned deep, but beneath it, that spark ignited fully, fierce and unyielding. The humiliation burned deep, but beneath it, that spark ignited fully, fierce and unyielding, as I stood on the porch, the night air cooling the tears on my cheeks while distant crickets chirped in the yard. My hands still gripped the railing, splinters pricking my skin, grounding me in the raw ache of Dad's words echoing in my head. "Uneducated trash, cut off, get out." The door behind me stayed shut, no one rushing after. Just muffled voices filtering through the wood, rising and falling like a debate I wasn't part of anymore. My purse strap dug into my shoulder, heavy with the weight of my phone, which buzzed again, insistent vibrations traveling up my arm. I fumbled for it, fingers numb and clumsy, the screen lighting up my face in the dim glow of the porch light. Sarah's name flashed. My OO, probably with another update on the deal. I almost silenced it, thumb hovering over the button, but something, maybe that spark, made me swipe accept instead, pressing the phone to my ear with a shaky hand. "Shannon? You there?" Sarah's voice burst through, excited, a stark contrast to the knot in my throat. I leaned against the house siding, the rough brick scraping my back through my dress, and managed a hoarse, "Yeah, I'm here." My voice cracked, betraying the sobs I'd been holding back, and I wiped my nose with the back of my free hand, sniffling quietly. The mobs continued their frantic dance around the bulb overhead, wings fluttering shadows across the steps. Sarah paused, her tone shifting to concern. "You okay? Sounds rough." I glanced at the door, half expecting it to open, but it didn't. Just more murmurs inside, Dad's booming laugh cutting through like nothing happened. "Family stuff," I muttered, pacing a small circle on the porch, my heels clicking softly on the worn wood. "What's up?" She dove in, words tumbling fast, her enthusiasm pulling me out of the fog. "The buyers just signed off. It's done. $50 million. All terms we wanted. Upfront payment hits tomorrow, and the press release goes live at 8 a.m. Monday." My breath caught, a sharp inhale that made my chest hitch. $50 million. The number hung there, massive, real. I stopped pacing, gripping the phone tighter, knuckles whitening against the case. This was it, the acquisition I'd poured everything into, the one that valued my little hobby at a fortune. Tears welled again, but different now, mixing hurt with a rush of vindication. "Really?" I whispered, voice trembling, as if saying it louder would make it vanish. Sarah laughed, a bright sound that echoed in my ear. Really, you did this, Shannon? From scratch. We're popping champagne here, wish you were in the office. I sank onto the porch steps, the concrete cold through my dress, knees pulling up as I rested my forehead on them. The phone stayed pressed to my ear, Sarah rattling off details, stock options for the team, transition plans, how the retailer planned to expand our eco line nationwide. Each word built on the last, painting the scale of what I'd achieved. No degree, no safety net, just grit and late nights. My mind flashed to the early days, packing boxes in that dingy studio, fingers raw from tape, but now? $20 million in annual revenue ballooning to empire status. I let out a shaky laugh, muffled against my knee, the sound foreign in the quiet night. I can't believe it, I said, lifting my head, staring at the dark driveway where my car waited like an escape. Sarah's voice softened. Believe it. You've built something huge. Hey, you gonna tell your family? This could shut up the doubters. The question hit like a fresh wound. Tell them? After tonight? I glanced back at the door, light seeping under it, shadows moving as people shifted inside. Part of me wanted to burst back in, phone held high, screaming the news. But the rejection stung too fresh. Dad's finger pointing, Emily's smug silence, Mom's averted eyes. Not yet, I replied, standing slowly, legs wobbly as blood rushed back. My free hand brushed dirt from my dress, a futile swipe. Maybe never. Sarah hummed thoughtfully. Your call, but damn Shannon, this is your moment. Celebrate it. We talked logistics a bit more, wire transfers, NDAs, but my focus splintered, ears tuning to the house. A chair scraped inside, voices rising, someone was coming. The call wrapped as the door creaked open behind me. Sarah signing off with, "Congrats again, boss. Talk tomorrow." I hung up, screen going dark, and slipped the phone into my purse, zipping it with a quick tug. Footsteps approached. Mom, her silhouette framed in the doorway, hands wringing a dish towel. "Shannon?" she called softly, stepping out, the door clicking shut behind her. Her face was pale under the light, eyes red-rimmed, and she hugged her arms against the chill. I turned fully, arms crossing over my chest, a barrier. "What?" My tone came out colder than intended, but I didn't soften it. She hesitated, glancing back at the house, then down at her slippers scuffing the porch. "Your father, he didn't mean it. He's just stressed. Come back in." "Stressed?" I felt a bitter laugh bubble up, but swallowed it, my throat tight. "He meant every word, Mom. Uneducated trash, that's what he thinks." She winced, reaching out a hand, fingers trembling in the air between us. "He's proud, in his way. Give him time." Time, the excuse I'd heard for years. My phone buzzed once more in my purse, a confirmation email probably vibrating against my side like a heartbeat. The deal's reality surged through me, straightening my posture, chin lifting. "I don't need his pride," I said, voice gaining strength, each word deliberate. Mom's hand dropped, towel twisting tighter in her grip. "Don't say that, we're family." Family, the word twisted now after the disownment. I took a step back toward the steps, my heel catching slightly on a loose board. Family that cuts me off, that insults me in front of everyone? Tears pricked again, but I blinked them away, focusing on the warmth of success still humming from the call. Inside, voices loudened, Dad's gruff tone, Emily's measured one, debating my exit, no doubt. Mom glanced over her shoulder, then back, pleading. "Please stay, talk to him." But the spark flared. I shook my head, turning away. "No, I'm done begging for scraps." As I descended the steps, gravel crunching under my shoes, Mom called after me, voice cracking. "Shannon, wait!" But I didn't, reaching my car, hand on the door handle, cool metal steadying me. The call had changed everything, not just financially but in that precise moment of humiliation. It revealed my worth, bright and undeniable. Unlocking the door with a beep that pierced the night, I slid in, engine roaring to life, headlights cutting through the dark. As I backed out, Mom stood on the porch, shrinking in the rear view, the house lights blurring as tears finally fell. But they were release now, not defeat. The scale of my success settled in, a shield against the pain, as I drove into the night. The tears drying on my cheeks in sticky trails, the shield of success from that call hardening around me like armor, something inside snapped. A fierce, unyielding refusal to let their rejection be the last word. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter, leather creaking under my fingers, as the headlights cut through the dark streets of our old neighborhood. Houses blurred by, familiar porches lit dimly, but my mind raced back to the table, to Dad's pointed finger. Emily's smug nod, Mom's averted eyes. No, I couldn't just slink away, tail between my legs, after years of swallowing their shade while propping them up. The spark ignited into a flame. I slammed on the brakes at the end of the block, tires screeching against asphalt, the jolt throwing me forward against the seatbelt. Heart pounding, I yanked the wheel, turning the car around in a sharp U, gravel spitting from under the wheels. The engine revved as I accelerated back, the house lights growing brighter in the distance, pulling me like a magnet. This wasn't revenge, it was truth, long overdue. I pulled into the driveway again, tires crunching to a stop, and killed the engine, the sudden silence ringing in my ears. My purse thumped against my hip as I got out, slamming the door with a resounding bang that echoed through the yard. The front door was still cracked open from Mom's earlier plea, light spilling onto the porch in a yellow wedge. I marched up the steps, heels pounding the wood, each thump matching the thud in my chest. Pushing the door wide, it swung in with a creak, and I stepped into the foyer, the warmth of the house hitting me like a wall after the cool night air. Voices from the dining room halted mid-sentence, chairs scraped as people turned. Mom was halfway to the kitchen, tray of cake in her hands, but she froze, the plates rattling slightly in her grip. "Shannon?" she gasped, eyes widening, a fork slipping from the tray to clatter on the floor. Dad rose from his seat at the head of the table, napkin dropping from his lap, his face flushing redder than before. "What the hell? I told you to leave!" His voice boomed, but there was a crack in it now, uncertainty flickering in his eyes as he clenched his fists at his sides. Emily and Mark exchanged glances, Emily's wine glass pausing mid-lift, droplets beating on the rim. Uncle Bob muttered something under his breath, shifting uncomfortably, while Aunt Karen's hand fluttered to her throat, necklace chain twisting in her fingers. I stood there, doorway framing me, chin lifted, feeling the weight of their stares but refusing to shrink. My voice came out calm, steady, like I'd rehearsed it, though I hadn't. "You think I'm trash? Uneducated, worthless? Let me tell you what I've been doing while you've been looking down on me." The words flowed, each one deliberate, as I pulled my phone from my purse, fingers steady despite the adrenaline surging through me. I opened the email from Sarah, the acquisition confirmation glowing on the screen, and held it up, turning it so they could see the headline, $50 million deal closed. Gasps rippled around the room. Mom set the tray down hard, the cake wobbling. Dad's eyes narrowed, stepping closer, peering at the screen like it was a trick. "What is this, some joke?" I shook my head, scrolling to the revenue figures, $20 million last year alone, and thrust it toward him. "No joke. My little hobby is a $20 million business. I built it from nothing, no degree, just work you never bothered to ask about." The scramble started then, stunned faces morphing into frantic backpedaling. Emily set her glass down with a clink, standing up, her chair tipping slightly before Mark caught it. "Shannon, wait, that's amazing. Why didn't you say something?" Her voice pitched higher, hands gesturing placatingly, but her eyes darted to Dad, seeking cues. Mark nodded vigorously, his stethoscope swinging as he leaned forward. "Yeah, sis, congrats, we had no idea." No idea, the lie hung there, but I wasn't done. I pocketed the phone, crossing my arms, the fabric of my dress pulling tight across my shoulders. "No idea, or didn't care? And here's the best part. You've been living off it for years." I listed them off, voice rising just enough to command the room, pointing at each one. "Dad, that knee surgery? I paid the $50,000 bill. Emily, your student loans, wiped clean by my anonymous transfers. Mark, your wedding venue, covered. Mom's car, the house repairs. All me, quietly, because I thought that's what family does." Silence crashed in, thick and suffocating. Dad's face drained of color, his mouth opening and closing like a fish, no words coming out as he sank back into his chair, the wood groaning under him. Mom's hands covered her mouth, tears spilling over her fingers, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Aunt Karen whispered, "Oh my God," her eyes wide, while Uncle Bob averted his gaze, suddenly fascinated by his empty plate, fork twisting idly. Emily flushed, sitting down abruptly, her bracelet jangling against the table. We thought it was from investments or something," she stammered, fingers picking at the tablecloth edge. Mark rubbed his neck, avoiding my eyes, mumbling, "Thanks, I guess, but why hide it?" "Why hide?" The question ignited the hypocrisy fully. I stepped further in, the door swinging shut behind me with a soft click. Hide? Because every time I tried to share, you shut me down. Get a degree, real job, embarrassment. You celebrated their successes but ignored mine. And now, when it's big enough to matter, you scramble? Hypocrite. Dad found his voice, hoarse and defensive, pounding a fist lightly on the table, making the glasses jump. If you'd told us sooner, maybe things would have been different. But you chose to sneak around. Sneak. The accusation fueled me. I laughed, a short, bitter sound that made Cousin Lisa flinch. Different? You'd have taken credit or asked for more. No, this is on you. You disowned me thinking I was nothing, but I've been everything you needed. The room squirmed. Whispers started, relatives murmuring apologies, Emily trying to interject with, "Let's talk this out," her hand reaching out but dropping when I shot her a look. Mom sobbed openly now, dabbing her eyes with the dish towel, pleading, "Please, Shannon, stay, we can fix this." But I shook my head, the finality settling in my bones. No fixing. You've shown your true colors. I'm done chasing approval from people who only value me when it's convenient. With that, I turned, hand on the doorknob again, twisting it open. The night air rushed in, cool and freeing. Dad called after me, voice cracking, "Wait, Shannon, don't go like this." But I didn't look back, stepping out, the door shutting firmly behind me. My heels clicked down the steps, purposeful, as their voices rose in chaos inside, arguments, blame shifting. I got in my car, key turning with a smooth click, engine purring to life. Backing out for the final time, the headlights swept over the house, illuminating faces at the window, stunned, scrambling, but I felt light, unburdened. The powerful exit wasn't loud, it was me walking away, whole and validated by my own truth. Driving away from that house for what felt like the last time, the headlights piercing the dark road ahead. A strange calm settled over me, replacing the adrenaline-fueled rage with a quiet clarity that made my hands steady on the wheel. The confrontation had been cathartic, their stunned faces etched in my mind. Dad sinking into his chair, Mom's tears, Emily and Mark fumbling for words. But as the miles stretched between us, exhaustion crept in, my eyelids heavy, shoulders slumping against the seat. I'd exposed the hypocrisy, walked out on my terms, but the ache of rejection lingered, a hollow spot in my chest that the $50 million deal couldn't fill. Not yet. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat, screen lighting up with texts from Sarah and the team, congrats emojis, virtual high fives, but I silenced it, needing space. Instead of heading home to my empty apartment, I veered toward the city, toward the people who'd become my real family over the years. My business partners and close team members. They were throwing an impromptu celebration at our favorite rooftop bar, a spot with string lights and skyline views, and right now, that warmth called louder than solitude. I pulled into the parking garage below the bar 2 hours later, the engine ticking as it cooled, and checked my reflection in the rear view. Mascara smudged, eyes puffy from earlier tears. I wiped my face with a tissue from the glove compartment, the paper rough against my skin, and reapplied lip gloss, twisting the tube with a click. It wasn't perfect, but it would do. Stepping out, the cool underground air raised goosebumps on my arms, and I rode the elevator up, the hum vibrating through my shoes. The doors dinged open to the rooftop, music spilling out, soft jazz mixed with laughter, and the scent of grilled appetizers wafting in the breeze. String lights twinkled overhead, casting a golden glow on the group clustered around a high-top table. Sarah, my COO with her signature ponytail, Mike, our head of marketing, nursing a beer, Lena, the product designer who'd been with me since the early days, and a handful of others, about 10 in all, faces lit with genuine smiles as they spotted me. "Shannon," Sarah called, waving me over, her arms opening for a hug. I walked toward them, the wooden deck creaking under my heels, and she enveloped me in a squeeze, her perfume floral and comforting. "You made it! We were about to send a search party." The others cheered lightly, raising glasses. Champagne, flutes, fizzing with bubbles. And Mike pulled out a chair for me, the metal scraping against the floor. "Boss lady arrives," he grinned, handing me a flute, the glass cool and condensation slick in my palm. I sank into the seat, the cushion soft, and took a sip, the crisp bubbles bursting on my tongue, washing away the bitterness of the dinner. Lena leaned in from across the table, her earrings dangling as she tilted her head. "Tell us everything. How does it feel to be a multi-millionaire mogul?" Her eyes sparkled, no jealousy, just pride, and the group leaned in, faces expectant, not a hint of judgment. As the night unfolded around that table, the contrast to the family dinner hit me in waves, each moment highlighting what I'd been missing. Back home, every word had been a minefield. Dad's booming dismissals, Emily's backhanded jabs, Mark's silent complicity, all under the guise of concern. Here, conversation flowed easy, genuine. Sarah clinked her glass against mine, the ring clear and bright. To Shannon, who turned a crazy idea into an empire. Remember those first boxes in your tiny apartment? We packed till our fingers bled. Laughter erupted, Mike chiming in, "Yeah, and that supplier who sent us pink toothbrushes instead of green? Disaster turned gold when you spun it into a limited edition." I laughed too, a real one that loosened the knot in my chest, my hand gesturing as I recounted the story, fingers tracing shapes in the air. No one interrupted to one-up me. They nodded, eyes locked on mine, validating every step. The food arrived. Platters of sliders, veggie skewers, cheese boards, and we dug in, plates passing hand to hand. Lena pushed a slider my way, bun warm and sesame seeded. "Eat, you look like you need it." I bit in, juices dripping down my chin, and wiped it with a napkin, chuckling at Mike's joke about our early marketing fails. At the family table, meals were tense affairs, forks clinking in silence, punctuated by critiques. Here it was messy, joyful. Sarah spilling champagne on the table, everyone scrambling for napkins, laughing it off. "To more spills and successes," she toasted, and we raised glasses again, the clinks a chorus of support. I felt seen, not scrutinized. My achievements weren't threats but shared victories. Mike pulled up his phone, showing a draft press release, screen glowing as he scrolled. "This is gonna blow up, you're a legend, Shan." "No, but you should have gone to college, just pure hype." As the evening deepened, the city lights twinkling below like stars, deeper talks emerged. Lena shared her own family struggles, parents who pushed art school but dismissed design as frivolous, her voice soft, hands squeezing mine under the table. "You showed me it's okay to choose your path," she said, eyes misty. Sarah nodded, ponytail bobbing. "Same. My folks wanted corporate stability, but watching you hustle inspired me to jump ship." The vulnerability flowed both ways. I opened up about the dinner, words tumbling out, Dad's insult, the disownment, the hidden support. My voice wavered at first, fingers tracing the rim of my glass, but they listened. No pity, just empathy. Mike's brow furrowed, beer set down with a thud. "That's bullshit. They're blind. Look what you've built. We're your family now." Heads nodded, a murmur of agreement, and Sarah hugged me sideways, arm warm around my shoulders. Chosen over blood any day. The warmth enveloped me, a balm to the earlier toxicity. Back there, love was conditional, tied to degrees and conformity. Here it was unconditional, rooted in mutual respect. We lingered till closing, stories overlapping, laughter echoing into the night. As we hugged goodbye, Sarah's tight embrace, Mike's back slap, Lena's whispered, "Proud of you," I walked to my car, keys jingling in my hand, feeling full, not hollow. The biological family had rejected me, but this chosen one embraced me wholly, highlighting the difference in every genuine smile, every shared triumph. It wasn't just a celebration, it was a revelation of where I truly belonged. Walking to my car after those rooftop goodbyes, the keys jingling softly in my hand as the deck's string lights faded behind me, that sense of belonging lingered, a warm buffer against the chill of what lay ahead. The aftermath of the blow-up at Dad's dinner. The drive home was quiet, city streets emptying out under street lamps, my mind replaying the evening's highs. Sarah's hug, Mike's jokes, Lena's quiet support. But as I pulled into my apartment garage, the concrete echoing my tires' hum, reality intruded with a ping from my phone. Texts lighting up the screen, one after another from Mom, Emily, even Mark. "Call me, we need to talk, I'm sorry." I stared at the notifications in the dim car light, thumb hovering over the delete button, but instead powered off the device, screen going black with a soft click. The chosen family's warmth had shown me what real support felt like. Now it was time to build walls around it, to handle the biological family's scramble without letting them breach again. That night, sleep came fitful, sheets twisting around my legs, but by morning, resolve had set in like concrete. I'd established boundaries, clear and firm, starting with how I'd respond to their outreach. The next day dawned bright, sunlight slanting through my blinds as I brewed coffee, the machine gurgling and steaming on the counter. I sat at my kitchen island, mug warm in my hands, the bitter brew grounding me as I turned my phone back on. Messages flooded in. Dozens now, voicemails too. Mom's voice cracked in the first one, played on speaker as I sipped. "Shannon, honey, please pick up. Your father regrets everything. Come home." Regrets. The word rang hollow after years of dismissal. Emily's text chain was polished, lawyer-like. "I didn't realize the extent of your contributions. Let's meet and discuss." Mark's was blunter. "Sis, that was messed up. Call me?" I set the mug down with a thud, steam rising in curls, and felt my jaw tighten, teeth clenching. Contributions, they framed it like a business deal, not the love I'd given freely. My fingers tapped the counter, nails clicking rhythmically, as I weighed my response. No rash replies, boundaries meant control, not reaction. I opened a notes app, typing out thoughts. No more money, no unscheduled calls, communication on my terms. The primary wave hit mid-morning as I was reviewing deal docs on my laptop, screen glowing with spreadsheets and contracts. The phone rang, Dad's number flashing. My heart skipped, a familiar tug of habit urging me to answer, but I let it go to voicemail, the ringtone cutting off abruptly. His message played, gruff voice halting. "Shannon? I was out of line, didn't know about the business, the help. Come over, we'll sort it." Sort it, like a problem to fix, not a relationship shattered. I stood, pacing the living room, bare feet sinking into the rug, arms crossed tight over my chest. The apartment felt small, walls closing in with memories. Wiring money after his surgery, him never asking how I afforded it. My breath came quicker, chest heaving, but I stopped at the window, staring at the city bustle below, people hurrying with coffees and briefcases. This was my world now. Theirs couldn't invade unless I allowed it. By afternoon, attempts escalated. Emily called next, her voice smooth when I finally picked up after 3 rings, hand hesitating on the accept button. "Shannon, thank God. Listen, we all overreacted. Your success is incredible. Why keep it secret?" I leaned against the counter, free hand gripping the edge, knuckles whitening. "Secret? I tried sharing for years. You dismissed it." Silence stretched, her end crackling faintly. "Fair, but family forgives. Dinner tomorrow, my treat." The offer dangled, tempting in its normalcy, but I felt the pull of old patterns. Me conceding, them glossing over. "No," I said, voice firm, surprising myself with its steadiness. "I'm setting boundaries. No more financial help, no drop-ins or guilt trips. If we talk, it's when I'm ready and only about moving forward, not pretending nothing happened." She sucked in a breath, audible over the line. "That's harsh. Dad's heartbroken." Heartbroken, the manipulation twisted in my gut. "He called me trash, Emily. Disowned me. Actions have consequences." I hung up, phone clattering on the counter, my hand shaking as I pressed end. The screen dimmed, reflecting my flushed face, but a weight lifted, shoulders relaxing for the first time that day. Mark texted during my late lunch, a sandwich half eaten on a plate, crumbs scattering as I read. "Hey, I get why you're mad, but we're blood. Let's grab coffee." Blood, the tie they'd wielded like a chain. I typed back slowly, thumbs deliberate. "Blood doesn't excuse years of belittling. I need space. No contact until I reach out." "Send," the whoosh sound final. He replied instantly. "Seriously? After all you've done?" The hypocrisy flared anger. I blocked his number temporarily, fingers swiping with a satisfying click, screen confirming. Mom's call came evening as I was winding down with a book on the couch, pages rustling under my fingers. I answered, voice soft but resolved. "Mom," she sobbed immediately, words tumbling. "Please, Shannon, come home. He's sorry, we're all sorry. You can't cut us off." Cut us off, echoing Dad's verdict on me. I closed the book, setting it aside with a thump. "I'm not cutting you off forever, but things change now. No more money without asking, no expectations, therapy for everyone if we rebuild." She sniffled, handkerchief rustling over the line. "Therapy? Your father won't." I interrupted gently. "Then that's his choice, mine is protecting myself." The call ended with her plea hanging, but I felt empowered, not guilty, as I set the phone to Do Not Disturb, the icon glowing red. Relatives piled on via email, Aunt Karen's lengthy apology, Uncle Bob's awkward "didn't mean to pile on." I replied uniformly, "Appreciated, but space needed, boundaries in place." Hitting send each time reinforced the fortress, my laptop keys clicking decisively. By nightfall, as I brushed my teeth, foam bubbling at my lips, mirror fogging from the sink's hot water, reflection showing tired but determined eyes, the day's efforts coalesced into a new normal. No more anonymous wires. I'd log into the bank app, canceling recurring transfers with a few taps, confirmations pinging. No more swallowing insults for family harmony. The aftermath wasn't chaos, it was me methodically building rules of engagement, brick by brick. Slipping into bed, sheets cool against my skin, I realized this wasn't isolation. It was freedom, the chosen family waiting beyond, while the biological one learned to respect the drawbridge I'd raised. Slipping into bed that night, the sheets cool against my skin as I pulled the comforter up to my chin. That realization of freedom lingered like a quiet hum, easing the tension from my muscles for the first time in days. The apartment was silent, save for the distant hum of city traffic below, and as I stared at the ceiling, shadows dancing from the streetlights filtering through the blinds, my mind shifted from boundaries to what came next. Not just protecting myself, but building something bigger, something that redefined what the name Thompson meant on my terms. The deal's windfall wasn't just numbers in a bank account, it was power, a chance to turn the pain of rejection into purpose. By morning, as sunlight crept across the floor, I'd decided I'd launch an initiative through my company, a mentorship program for young entrepreneurs without degrees, people like me who'd been dismissed as uneducated. It wouldn't be revenge, it'd be reclamation, proving success wasn't about fitting molds but breaking them. And today, the day after setting those family boundaries, was launch day, a small event at our office to kick it off, where I'd pour my story into action. I woke early, the alarm beeping softly on my nightstand, and reached over to silence it, my hand brushing the cool glass of my water cup. Sitting up, the sheets pooling around my waist, I felt a mix of nerves and excitement churning in my stomach, like butterflies testing their wings. The program had been in the works for months, quietly planned with Sarah and the team, but now, post-deal and post-blow-up, it felt urgent, personal. I padded to the bathroom, flicking on the light, the bulb humming to life as I splashed water on my face, droplets clinging to my lashes. Staring in the mirror, I traced the faint lines around my eyes, remnants of yesterday's stress, but my reflection looked determined, jaw set. "This is for you," I whispered, wiping my face with a towel, the fabric soft against my skin. No more hiding achievements, this initiative would shout them, helping others while rewriting my legacy. Breakfast was quick. Oatmeal from the microwave, steam rising as I stirred in berries, the spoon clinking against the bowl. I ate standing at the counter, scrolling through the event agenda on my phone, screen bright in the morning light. We'd invited local startups, a few influencers and potential mentees, about 50 people to our office space, a converted warehouse with exposed bricks and big windows. The program offered grants, workshops, and one-on-one guidance, funded by a chunk of the acquisition proceeds. I'd named it Breakthrough Builders, a nod to forging paths without traditional gates. As I rinsed the bowl, water swirling down the drain, I thought of Dad's rigid blueprint, college, job, family, and how this flipped it, celebrating the outliers. Slipping into a tailored blazer and jeans, the fabric crisp as I buttoned up, I grabbed my bag, keys jangling, and headed out, the door clicking shut behind me. The office buzzed when I arrived, the elevator dinging open to laughter and the smell of fresh coffee. Sarah met me at the door, clipboard in hand, her ponytail swinging as she hugged me quick. "Ready to change lives?" she asked, eyes sparkling, and I nodded, squeezing her arm, the warmth of her support steadying me. We walked through the space, tables set with name tags, a podium at the front, banners reading Breakthrough Builders, Success Without Limits. Fluttering slightly from the AC. Team members hustled, Mike adjusting the projector, screen flickering to life with our logo, Lena arranging swag bags, eco-totes, stuffed with notebooks and our products. I helped set up the refreshment table, unfolding napkins with precise folds, my fingers lingering on the fabric as memories surfaced. Family dinners where I was sidelined, now contrasted by this room full of allies building with me. Guests trickled in by 10 a.m., footsteps echoing on the concrete floor as they mingled, coffee cups steaming in hands. I greeted them one by one. A 25-year-old app developer who'd dropped out like me, his handshake firm but eyes nervous. A single mom starting a baking business, her smile wide as she clutched her tote. "Heard about your story," she said, voice soft, and I felt a pang. My journey, once hidden, now inspiring. As the room filled, chairs scraping into rows, I took the podium, microphone humming faintly as I tapped it. The crowd quieted, faces upturned, diverse, eager, not a single judgmental glance. My hands gripped the edges, wood smooth under my palms, and I began, voice steady at first, then gaining strength. "I'm Shannon Thompson," I said, the name rolling out with new pride, "and I built a $20 million business without a degree, but my family called it a failure until it wasn't." Gasps rippled, heads nodding in recognition. I dove deeper, sharing the raw details, not for pity but power. They celebrated siblings' diplomas while I wired money for their bills, anonymously, chasing approval that never came. My throat tightened, but I pushed on, gesturing to the banners. "This program is my answer. Grants up to $50,000, mentorship from folks who've been there. No degrees required." Applause broke out, hands clapping sharply, and I felt tears prick, blinking them back as I outlined workshops, business planning, marketing hacks, resilience training. A young guy in the front row raised his hand, tattooed arm waving. "How do we apply?" I explained the simple online form, no essays, just passion pitches. Questions flowed. "What if we've failed before?" "Family doesn't support?" I answered each, drawing from my scars, late nights doubting, dad's insults fueling grit. "Failure's your teacher," I said, voice echoing slightly. "And family? Build your own." The room hummed with agreement, notebooks scribbling furiously. The event peaked with breakout sessions, groups clustering around tables, voices overlapping in excited chatter. I floated between them, kneeling beside a table where the app developer sketched ideas on a napkin, ink bleeding through. "Keep going," I encouraged, hand on his shoulder, feeling the tremble of his excitement. Lena joined, sharing design tips, her laughter light. By lunch, catered salads and sandwiches, plates clinking as people served themselves, the energy was electric, connections forming. A mentee pulled me aside, eyes shining. "You're reclaiming it all," she said, hugging me impulsively, her embrace brief but fierce. Reclaiming, yes, the Thompson name now stood for empowerment, not conformity. As the afternoon wound down, goodbyes exchanged with business cards swapping hands, I stood at the door, waving, the last guest's footsteps fading. Cleaning up with the team, stacking chairs with metallic clangs, sweeping crumbs, I reflected inwardly. This wasn't just an event, it was me etching my legacy, positive ripples from personal pain. Dad's blueprint crumbled here, replaced by mine, helping hundreds, maybe thousands, redefine success. Sarah bumped my shoulder playfully. "Proud of you, boss." I smiled, stacking the final chair, the weight satisfying. The family name? Mine now, on my terms, through impact that echoed far beyond blood ties. Cleaning up with the team after the launch event, stacking the final chair with a metallic clang that echoed through the emptying office, the day's energy still buzzed in my veins. But as the last banner came down, fabric folding softly in my hands, a deeper shift stirred inside me, pulling me toward a quiet corner by the window where the city skyline stretched out, lights twinkling like distant stars. The others chattered on, Sarah's laugh ringing out as she boxed up leftover swag, but I drifted away, leaning against the cool glass, my palm pressing flat against it, feeling the faint vibration of the building's hum. This wasn't just another workday wrap-up, it was a moment of solitary reflection, one that had been building since the dinner explosion, the deals close, the boundaries set. Here, alone amid the fading bustle, I let the thoughts flood in, micro moments of my journey replaying like a slow-motion film, leading to a profound realization my worth wasn't in their approval or even my successes, it was internal, a quiet peace I'd earned through every unseen struggle. I slid down to sit on the floor, back against the wall, knees drawn up, the concrete chill seeping through my jeans as I hugged my arms around them, fingers interlacing tightly. My eyes fixed on the horizon, where the sun dipped low, painting the sky in oranges and pinks that bled into the glass towers. Breathing deep, the air carrying a faint scent of coffee grounds from the refreshment table, I traced back to the start. Not the business, but me. That 23-year-old on the couch, notebook in lap, pen scratching furiously as ideas poured out, heart racing with fear and fire. I'd clenched that pen so hard my knuckles whitened, nails digging into the barrel, whispering doubts echoing Dad's voice, "You'll fail without a degree." But I'd written anyway, each word a small defiance, building to the first sale, the box taped with trembling hands, label printed on a borrowed printer. Tears had pricked then, not from joy, but relief, proof I wasn't nothing, The memories layered on, each one a thread in the tapestry of self-doubt I'd unraveled. Late nights in the studio, laptop screen glaring as I refreshed sales dashboards, fingers hovering over the mouse, clicking refresh again and again, pulse quickening with every zero. The eviction notice crinkling in my fist, paper edges sharp against my skin as I crumpled it, tossing it into the trash with a thud that masked my sob. I'd paced then, bare feet slapping the cold floor, hands raking through my hair, tugging strands in frustration. "Why keep going?" I'd muttered, voice cracking in the empty room. But something internal, a stubborn spark, had pushed me to the computer, typing marketing ideas until dawn, eyelids drooping but refusing to close. That persistence wasn't for them, it was for me. A quiet validation growing with every obstacle cleared. Deeper still, the family wounds surfaced, not as fresh cuts but scars, textured under my mental touch. Dad's birthday dinner replayed, his finger jabbing the air, voice booming, uneducated trash, my chair scraping back as I stood, napkin fluttering to the floor like a white flag I refused to wave. I'd clenched my fists then, nails biting palms, holding back the torrent until the porch, where tears fell hot and fast, splashing onto the wood. But even there, wiping them with a sleeve that smelled of grilled meat from the meal, I'd felt the shift, the call from Sarah vibrating in my pocket, a lifeline pulling me up. Not their rejection defining me, but my response, turning pain into the program launched today. The mentees' faces flashed. The app developer's nervous grin as he shook my hand, calluses rough against mine. The single mom's eyes welling as she clutched her application form, paper crinkling in her grip. Their hopes mirrored my past self, and in empowering them, I'd healed something in me. My breath fogged the window slightly, a hazy circle expanding and contracting with each exhale, and I traced a finger through it, drawing a simple line, a path forward. The realization crystallized. Validation wasn't external, not in deals or initiatives, but in the quiet knowing I'd built this life despite the odds. No more chasing Dad's nod, Emily's envy-masked praise, Mark's half-hearted support. I'd wired those funds with fingers flying over the keyboard, anonymous transfers completed with a satisfying click, thinking it bought love, but it hadn't. Love, real and internal, came from honoring my journey. The blisters from packing boxes, thumbs raw and red, the headaches from endless negotiations, temples throbbing as I paced during calls, voice steady despite the ache. Peace settled then, a warm blanket over the old hurts, as I unclenched my hands, palms upturned on my knees, feeling the lines etched there like maps of resilience. The office quieted further, team members calling goodnights, doors clicking shut, footsteps fading down the hall. I stayed seated, watching the sky darken, stars piercing through the city haze. A soft smile tugged my lips unbidden as I whispered to myself, "You're enough." The words hung in the air, simple and true, dissolving the last remnants of doubt. Rising slowly, joints popping from the position, I brushed dust from my jeans, fabric whispering against my legs. Grabbing my bag from a nearby chair, strap sliding over my shoulder with a familiar weight, I flicked off the lights, the room plunging into shadow save for the city glow. Locking the door behind me, key turning with a click, I stepped into the elevator, the descent smooth, mirroring the ease in my chest. True peace wasn't triumph over them, it was harmony within, a self-validation that no insult could touch. As the doors opened to the lobby, cool air rushing in, I walked out taller, ready for whatever came next. So what do you think? Did I set those boundaries too harshly, or just right to protect my peace? Have you ever had to cut ties or redefine family to find your own worth? Drop a comment below sharing your story. I'd love to hear how you've reclaimed your validation. And if this resonated, hit that like button, share with someone who needs it, and don't forget to subscribe for more real tales of turning pain into power. Remember, your value isn't in anyone else's eyes, it's in your own heart. Keep building, keep shining. You've got this.